there's lying around it. What's the truth?
Yeah, sadly, the chaos really continues in Minnesota. Appreciate you having me on, and thank you for your kind words about our reporting that we do over at Alpha News. But this all starts on a Saturday. It's Saturday, June 14th, 2 in the morning, and this shooting spree begins. Vance Belter is the man who is charged now with the assassination of Melissa Hortman and her.
By the way, just this is an hour and a half. It's fantastic. She's the director of the documentary. I think it was Minneapolis, The Fall of Minneapolis, George Floyd documentary, excellent documentary. They get into the assassination attempts that happen here. We're gonna let it play out a little bit, and then we'll have some commenting on it later. If you can subscribe to the channel, it really helps me out. A small channel trying to grow, and take a listen to what they have to say.
Her husband, Mark, but what we know is that he first arrives at Senator John Hoffman's home, the home he shares with his wife, Yvette. Their adult daughter happens to be in town during this, and Belter is dressed as a police officer. He's wearing also a latex mask. He has a flashlight, arrives at their door saying, "Police, open up." He's shouting. It's very chaotic, and basically this is
2 in the morning?
2 in the morning.
Man.
They open their door to him, and he starts shooting, from what we understand. Senator Hoffman is hit multiple times. His wife hit multiple times. His daughter heroically calls 911, tells the police it's Senator Hoffman that's been shot. And this, in a way, I think, sends a message to the rest of the surrounding agencies that this could have something to do with legislators, or perhaps people are being targeted, to look for this person, obviously. We know now that Belter stops at 2 more homes, people who are not home, legislators that are not home. At one point, he encounters a police officer in New Hope. That officer actually approaches his vehicle. He is in a vehicle that looks like a squad car, an SUV squad car. Goes so far as to outfit it with police lettering, actually on the license plate. It says police on the license plate. Light bar, all the things you would look for in a squad. This New Hope officer rolls up next to him. He is looking straight ahead and does not acknowledge the officer at all. She then rolls her window up and continues on to this lawmaker's home. So there's some questions about, how was he not apprehended in that moment? This is when he then continues to the former House Speaker, DFL House Speaker Melissa Hortman's home. And at this point, the police catch up to him, the Brooklyn Park Police Department. They are doing a welfare check basically on the Hortman home, saying, she doesn't live that far away. We should go to the Speaker Emerita, Melissa Hortman's home. And they get there. Shots ring out, but from what we understand, between the police and Belter. Somehow Belter still gets inside the Hortman home. Mark is killed, and then they find Melissa's body inside the home as well later on.
So the police are there for the shooting?
They are.
Mm-hmm. So how did he get away?
Still a lot of questions about that.
Like what?
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I didn't know that. I didn't get that.
He goes out a back door, from what we understand, escapes on foot, because he leaves his police cruiser there.
Now, a couple things, like just for context. This guy, he's almost 60 years old. And if you look at him, he doesn't look like he doesn't look like he's the fittest man in the world. So again, there are a lot of theories floating around about, a lot of times shit just happens, and we don't want to espouse or put in just because, bad things happen, whether it be tactically or we're going to have to see the body camera footage that comes out. We're going to have to see like where the positioning was. We're going to have to see the neighborhood layout. There's a lot of things that we still don't have to be able to digest and understand. How the hell does this guy get to, apparently he gets to the front door, officers approach him, shots ring out, he still gets inside the house, is able to kill these 2 people, and then able to leave and flee on foot afterwards. He doesn't get back into his car. Let her carry on.
On scene, this is where they find out it's Vance Belter. He has utility bills in this vehicle, things that I'll trace back to him. And he gets back to an address that mysteriously he'd been renting for the last couple of years. It's very strange. He shared his home with his wife and 5 children in Green Isle, Minnesota, which is about an hour outside of Minneapolis. But yet he was renting this room in Minneapolis where he would stay 2 or 3 nights a week, from what we understand from the neighbors. And he'd show up at sometimes midnight, leave at 4 or 5 in the morning. We've been able to look a lot at his social media and what he's put out there. He was working at some funeral homes, we understand, and would keep these strange hours. But neighbors actually thought he was a detective. That's what they thought of him. They thought it was strange that this guy would just show up a couple times a week.
Working at funeral homes?
Right. That's
doing what?
He said that he was doing kind of some just a disposal of bodies. He would talk about openly in a little college course that we found a clip of. But what's interesting is he ended his employment, from what we understand from these funeral homes, himself. Just more recently. It seems that there's perhaps some financial trouble.
Before we get into him, can you just play out the rest of the timeline? So he escapes through the back door. Somehow the police are there when he shoots these two people to death, but they don't get him. He winds up where, and how long does it take for them to find him?
So he goes back to this Minneapolis address.
How far is that from the scene? Of the shooting?
It's a walk. I mean, it's going to take a little while to get there. Definitely, 5-10 miles or so to that address. He then, and we have this all on surveillance camera. We've been able to get some surveillance video from the neighbors who could see his last movements. He's moving around some of his police cars. At one point, a bike appears out of the shed. It's all very strange. But then he walks to a nearby bus stop. And again, according to the charging document, this is where he meets a stranger. He wants to buy an e-bike off of this guy, who then offers and says, I actually have a car for sale too. It breaks down a bit, but he buys the e-bike and this black Buick from this stranger at the bus stop for $900. This man actually drives him to the bank, where he empties his $2,200 he has in his bank account. This is when the FBI releases surveillance video of him wearing a cowboy hat. This is the last picture. Basically the picture they're releasing to the public to find this guy that morning. But this then leads to the largest manhunt in Minnesota history to find him. He ends up, we know now, he'd been texting his wife. He said something along the lines of, Dad went to war last night, and also something about not wanting the kids to be on the property because there's going to be some people that are trigger happy that could be there soon. So that seemed to be an indication he was going back
He calls
to their
himself
home.
Dad in his text with his wife?
Right.
Yeah, that's freaky.
Yeah. And then it sounds like he went back to that address to get money. There was a large amount of money that was left at the home. Ultimately, though,
The one that he was renting.
the actual home that he shared with his wife and children in Green Isle. So he drives back there.
And then where does he go?
He's actually found in a field not far from that home at all. At this point, police had set up around his home. It was pretty obvious he wasn't going to be getting into his house to get this cash. His wife, at one point, is pulled over shortly after. She leaves the property, and she's found a couple hours from their home with guns, their passports, and about $10,000 in cash.
Where are the kids?
In their vehicle. 3 children are with her. A couple of them are older kids. And it turns out from some of the reporting that's been done now, they called themselves preppers. They had kind of a plan. It's unclear if the wife knew of what he did.
Has she been charged?
Point. She has not been charged. Correct.
Wow, this is an even weirder story than I realized. Okay, so who is he? What do we know about the man who has been charged with these murders?
Yeah, this is what's interesting. He grew up in a small town in Minnesota, in Sleepy Eye. His dad was a standout baseball star, a longtime baseball.
Sleepy Eye is the name of the town?
Sleepy Eye, Minnesota. Yes.
So great. I love this country.
And he has. A lot of people have described him to us as a devout Christian. I don't think you're a Christian if you're capable of this, clearly. It's interesting how the media, you see this happening with this story, automatically takes their corners. You have some friend of his that says he's a Trump supporter. So this is how the story is painted, that this, lunatic Trump supporter goes on this rampage. But there's clearly so much more to this. And that's what bothers me with the media. Nobody's willing to really ask these questions.
So the 4th of July is almost here.
Yeah. So, like I said, this thing goes on for an hour and a half. She breaks it down really well, and it's just wild. There are certain points where she talks about that. I think he worked at a 7-Eleven for a while, and then this guy has like traveled all over the world. He did some time in the Congo, and you just start just wondering, like, what the hell is going on? Like, he worked for Tim Walz's office. It's just so weird. And then he writes a letter to the FBI, essentially saying, it sounds a little crazy. The letter says that Tim Walz made him do this. He writes a letter to Kash Patel. He says that he's been trained by the government. It just gives you these vibes of like a CIA, brainwashed guy, almost, it's just really, really wild. It's just really weird, super interesting. But yet, so like I said, she goes on really well. she does excellent reporting. She explains it really well, and it's a lot more complex than you initially thought. When you just see the headlines, when you see the news reports and stuff like that of this story, it kind of just sounds like a deranged guy that for political purposes went out there and assassinated these two individuals and then tried to kill two others. I think he ended up, so he killed two, wounded two. A manhunt ensued, and how was he able to walk the all those miles back to his residence without being seen? A lot of questions that need to be answered. It's just wild. We're probably just starting to break the surface with this story. But if you guys can, check it out, man. It's really interesting. Drop in the comments if you have any questions about it. I can answer to the best of my ability. But if you can if you can share, if you can subscribe, really helps out the channel, especially subscribing, because then you get the videos that I come out with later on. I'll cover this a little bit more down the road. Thanks a lot, guys, for coming out. We'll see you in the next video. Thanks a lot.